speaker is Lee Hawkins. He's going to speak to us about the decarbonising journey in the Whitsundays. Lee is a earth scientist and climate change resilience officers for the Whitsundays Healthy Heart Project and has extensive experience with tourism, education, small business, and local government. Lee, could you come on up to join us?
Okay. So, the Great Barrier Reef, it's the lifeblood of Whitsunday tourism, and many of our operators have a very intimate knowledge and relationship with the environment they live and work in. However, the demands of running a business in what has been a very challenging business environment often means that decarbonisation and sustainability have taken a back seat in business plans. So the project has been seen as a way to provide the targeted practical support for businesses which not only creates a sense of meaningful commitment, but also momentum, provide meaningful local emissions data, which is lacking at the moment, a sense of shared purpose and an ability to identify and overcome barriers as a group. So I'll be providing a bit of background to the project and our current progress and key learnings. So, like many regions, we have a variety of industries with very different needs and challenges such as agriculture, fishing, forestry, mining, construction and tourism. So some key points: 43% of all tourists who access the reef do so from our region, and even though it contributes only 9% of economic output, tourism sector provides 26% of direct tourism related jobs. Just keeping in mind that these jobs provided by the sector are dominated by food services, as you can see there on the graph, accommodation and mixed support industries. Now, this is of significance when we look at the actual staged nature of the project. Since 2016, our inshore coral reef health has remained poor and continues to decline since the 2017 Cyclone Debbie event. Inshore water quality, seagrass and coral are all rated as poor in our region since 2008. And in light of this report prepared in 2018 by the Climate Council, which found that Australia's tourism industry is the most vulnerable but least prepared to manage risk from climate change, we saw the time was right for a project of this nature. So the project itself is a grassroots program, and it's attracted a key group of high-performing ecotourism operators. And these operators are eager to address the number one threat to the reef, which is climate change. So the project empowers local tourism operators to contribute to emissions reduction and also to improve sustainability region-wide, because what is measured can be managed. Griffith Institute for Tourism was engaged to develop the project plan, which was co-funded by the Climate Realities and the Whitsunday Climate Innovation Hub, and the project itself is co-funded by the Great Barrier Reef Foundation under the Whitsundays Islands Initiative and Whitsunday Regional Council. In a climate risk and opportunity study conducted by Ernst & Young for Department of Environment Science, 3 key opportunities were identified for the Queensland tourism industry to move towards net zero emissions economy. Number 1 was the development of a diversified and sustainably managed tourist attractions. Number 2 was development and promotion of a clean and green tourism brand. And 3 was actually building resilience to the industry to those physical and transitional climate risks. So the project is aiming to focus on those 3 opportunities and encourage the wider community to reach for net zero targets, as Council has already committed to 50% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050. So looking a little bit closer at our regional emission profile, the Whitsundays makes up approximately 3% of all tourism emissions in Queensland, producing 0.33 megatons of CO2 emissions in 2016. But if we dig further into our tourism emissions by sector, you'll see that air transport is responsible for the largest share, which is unfortunate for us. It's really a location thing, followed closely by road transport and food and beverage. So on a broader view of the overall Whitsundays carbon footprint on the left, you can see emissions are dominated by CO2 emissions from agriculture, energy generation and transport. So the project itself is a 4-year project. It's staged. The overarching goal of the project is to drive and facilitate greener, more sustainable business practices in our sector in 2 ways. 1, by reducing emissions from the tourism sector in the Whitsundays, and 2, by gaining accreditation for the wider destination by recognising the Council's work towards net zero emissions in 2050. So as can be seen, the tourism sector is made up of many moving parts, and so we are tackling the sector in stages, and we are currently 17 months into the 4-year project. So the staged approach has enabled us to focus on one tourism subsector group within the first year, and that first group is our marine tourism operators, our island resorts and our marinas. And while that's going on, we're also preparing our destination-wide certification for the first time. So as you can see, we've recruited approximately half of the total targeted businesses in year one. And this year we have just opened up the project to our mainland accommodation providers and aviation tourism operators. And we are expecting a big uptick in the coming months as we roll out our engagement activities. So to date, we've been able to recruit 5 from that sector. We are starting to create a group of project champions that other businesses can learn from. And I think we've already heard speakers talking about the importance of those champions. And because our sectors are quite diverse, the businesses are quite diverse. For example, marine operators and island resorts rely on boats and the use of fuel and have to transport waste out of the marine park, whereas we have businesses on the mainland with different challenges, such as the energy that they're consuming from the grid, which is predominantly sourced from those coal-fired power plants. So furthermore, creating clusters of businesses belonging to the same subsector allows us to focus on sustainability issues which are relevant to each tourism subsector, and businesses within each of those clusters may have more or less experience with sustainability, starting from different baselines, and this provides opportunities for transfer and share of knowledge. So what are our partners up to? They have joined as official Healthy Heart Reef partners. They've signed a formal partnership agreement. We have provided them with digital marketing tools, including a partner logo, which you can see there. And this has created an identifying symbol to help create community and belonging to something special. Partners are adding the logos to their websites, they're displaying them at their reception counters and on their boats, etc. Partners are also entering emissions data into an EarthCheck online carbon calculator that we have provided free of charge to all partners. This provides them with their operational carbon footprint. So once this footprint has been calculated, they are setting carbon emissions targets, reduction targets, which we produce onto a simple business plan. You can just see an example there of what it looks like. And this is really just a visual aid which helps to inspire their staff and perhaps their customers if they choose to do so. So reporting out of this work has clearly identified any inefficiencies that are existing within their operations, where their high emission activities are occurring, and we are helping to, I suppose, suggest the kinds of changes that they may be able to make to reduce those inefficiencies and high emissions. These exercises are also enabling them to consider future capital expense planning in areas such as green tech and electric motors, which is substantial. Partners are also engaging in regular workshops and webinars on topics such as green electricity, zero emissions boating, and building resilience in your business. So, finally, they're getting rewarded with a champion story. This has been really important to share their learnings, to share their future plans with other businesses. So our progress. We now have some meaningful data. Emissions data has been entered. On the left, you can see a breakdown of emissions by scope. Not surprisingly, across all partners, the highest source of emissions data to date is from Scope 1 emissions, primarily fuel from the marine sector, followed closely by Scope 2 emissions from purchased power. We are expecting that to increase as the accommodation sector joins on. So how do these guide our efforts? Well, we are recognising that reduction of Scope 1 emissions from fuel use is very challenging due to the cost of clean boat tech and lack of available future fuels. Therefore, we think Scope 2 and 3 emissions is where we're going to really be realising reductions. And finally, before I get sent off stage, what have we discovered? We've discovered that our partners need a lot of support. Initially, we didn't realise how much that support would be, but we've discovered we need to help the operators, that the process is not quick, and at this point in time, business operators are not usually stepping up readily to do the work that's required. A lot of hand-holding is needed in the early stages in particular. So while some of our partners are self-sufficient and have hit the ground running, the majority of them have required a high level of support on the ground. Many of them do not have a technical understanding of how decarbonising can be achieved and why benchmarking is a crucial first step. So carbon calculator registration and training sessions, anywhere from 1 hour to 6 hours, and ongoing support is offered via a weekly Teams connection. However, once that initial benchmarking is completed, the following year has been proven to be much easier. And importantly, you can see that for councils, it's been great for our reputation, because once the community actually hears about the kind of work that we're doing with the sector, they're quite excited and quite optimistic. Thank you.